Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. For Fender Friday this week, we're going to take a look at the Rarities Series Quilt Top Stratocaster. The limited edition lineup from Fender Corona plant this year is called the Rarities Series. They're doing 5 quirky Stratocasters, 3 really cool tellies, and 1 flame top jazz bass. But today we're going to take a look at this one. As the name implies, it's a quilt top Stratocaster. I mean, normally Strats, they just have a solid body of something. Usually ash or alder, depending on what style of reissue you're going for or what specs you want. But this one has a top of maple put on it. I mean, it's not a huge top by any means, but it's not a super thin veneer. But it makes this Stratocaster stand out and be different. So let's go ahead and dive into my first impressions of this guitar. I think the first thing that stands out for most people, besides the quilty top, is the anodized aluminum pickguard. Normally, on a Stratocaster, it would be plastic, but this time, it's metal. And this is the first time I have ever seen one of these in person, and it's interesting. It feels disgusting at first, and you think, oh, is that a little bit sharp even? But then you start to realize what it's good for. Notice, I was just touching this. Do you see any fingerprints? No, I love that feature. I have a habit of getting a bunch of fingerprints on my guitars, and it kind of annoys me, especially when I'm doing demos. So that's something that's kind of cool about that. And it's also scratch resistant, for the most part. I mean, you can definitely leave scratch marks on it, but they just rub off. How nice is that? Cool. From my understanding, these pickguards actually come from the late 50s. They used them on the high-end jazz master of the era, and they also used them on student-level guitars. Besides that, I don't know too much about them. But just like the one we looked at last week, this one has a pure rosewood neck. But instead of having the maple fretboard, it's just the rosewood fretboard. It's all one piece. Your fretboard is your neck. That's not something I'm used to within the Gibson realm of things, but I mean, it's kind of common in the Fender world with the maple boards. Then you also have that laser engraved Fender Stratocaster logo. So pretty much I have the same complaints about this one as I did the last one, but I'm happy to say I was finally able to bond with these rosewood necks. What finally did it for me on this one is I did my normal steel wool treatment where I polished up the frets and cleaned off the fretboard and oiled the fretboard. And once I did that and put a little bit of graphite within the nut, oh my goodness, this thing just came to life. Because at first it's like, oh great, I had to be a broken record and say it just doesn't feel right. Yes, it has that satin finish to it, but it's not normal satin. You can still feel the wood grain. It's just not quite as smooth as I normally think a satin neck would be. But once I took care of the top of the board, it just didn't feel as dry anymore. So I'm happy to say I came to terms with that on this particular one. And we've kind of got the same strange color combinations going on here. You've got gold, you've got natural, which could kind of be construed as gold. And then you've got a light brown, a dark brown. It's a super colorful guitar. It looks terrible in photos, but in person, trust me, it works a little bit. But now I want to clear up a little bit of confusion that I had. Like, what is the difference between this one and the one that we reviewed last week? I didn't realize what was going on between these two until I really dove into this. This is like a vintage spec'd out Stratocaster, except for you got the quilty maple top. This one is like a modern Stratocaster. So you've got things like the humbucker in the bridge position of this one, but also notice this is a 22 fret neck versus the 21. This one has that compound radius neck that starts at 9.5 and ends at 14, whereas the one we're talking about today just keeps it at 9.5. This one has the modern 2-point synchronized tremolo system, whereas this is the vintage style. There's no fancy S1 circuit on this one today, that's just on the modern one. And you've got modern wraparound style tuners on this one, whereas this one, the strings go inside and then wraps around. So if you're trying to decide between these two, I think the best way to look at it is, do you prefer modern playability or the vintage flair? We'll learn some more of the differences on the workbench, but one last thing I want to talk about that I thought was cool, with this being like the older styled one, is you actually get one of these bridge covers on it. I mean, it looks a little bit doofy on a Stratocaster, but I thought I'd put it on at least for the first part of the video. So let's go ahead and throw this one on the workbench and take a look at its individual parts to learn more. I think it actually looks pretty cool without a pickguard on it, but you know, pickguardless Stratocasters, they don't look right. They look like super Strats then. Underneath your pickguard, it's routed for 3 single coil styled pickups. You can see at one point in time there was a sticker there that must have flaked off, or maybe they just decided to put it on the back of the pickguards. That's the same type of sticker that was on that last one in the neck position. That's something else that makes this more vintage-like, because the other one we were looking at had the humbucker route in the neck, even though it was just a single coil. And here's some more barcodes in there. And the other thing you're going to notice is it doesn't look like there's any shielding paint in here. You can just see through to the roasted alder body. And that's probably because the anodized aluminum pickguard here kind of acts as shielding as far as I've read. It's not supposed to be a complete shielding system, so I don't know, maybe they've got something else going on that I'm not aware of. But these are the same pickups as we found in that other one, it's just you have one in the bridge pickup. They're called the Pure Vintage 65s. I really enjoyed the tones out of them last week, so I think this set will also be nice. Notice that this one doesn't have that PCB attached to it like we saw last week. Someone was saying that might have had some advanced tone features that I wasn't demoing, so we'll have to take a look at that when I swap the necks on these things next week, or whenever I end up doing that. So pretty basic stuff here. But I did want to take a second and point out, there's like all these indentations on the finish right there. I'm not really quite sure what caused that, but you can't really play this guitar without a pickguard on it, so does it matter? No. Pretty basic setup, 3 single coils, you've got a 5-way switch, a master volume, and 2 tones. Within the circuit, the bridge pickup reads 5.92 k ohms. These two guys are about 3. The middle position, just by itself, almost 6. These two, we've got just about above 3. And what's this one, 6? Yep, just slightly under it. And no fancy electronics this time. And we'll take a quick peek within this cavity as well. Nothing too crazy going on in the output jack though. It's a lot easier to see where the top ends and the body begins on this one. I don't have to jerry-rig a bunch of lights up, because they just gave it a clear poly finish over top of it. And you've got that light colored maple on top of that roasted alder body. It definitely stands out a lot more than the last one. And I will say that this thing looks better in person than it does in photos, because you can truly appreciate this whole mapley creaminess on this brown back. It kind of works. The gold pickguard, I think it's an acquired taste. It's kind of that whole vintage flavor that's supposed to tell you, hey, this thing has vintage specs. But, you know, like a guy like me, I didn't pick up on that until, you know, I saw the more modern one first. But we've got vintage tall fret wire on here, only 21 frets, not 22. And it's just a solid rosewood neck. And it's got the 9.5-inch radius all the way up the neck. We've also got a bone nut, and maybe somebody can tell me, is this a vintage spec when it kind of curves in like this, and then a modern spec is when it's more of a straight line? Because that's another difference I noticed between these two. And no truss rod access right here, they have that all filled in with the walnut skunk stripe. You'd actually have to take the neck off to adjust it, and I find that a real big pain in my butt. Because this one actually could use a slight adjustment to play a little bit better, but I'll just save that until I do the neck swap job. But here's that laser engraved Fender logo, and the vintage Fender Deluxe style tuners. You put the string down inside, and then you wrap it around. The bone nut measures 1.65 inches, and 12th fret you're at 2 inches. First fret neck depth, 0.81. It kind of beefs up, 0.95 by the 12th. Fender's calling this the 60C neck shape. And we've got the typical 25.5-inch scale length. So that lines up perfectly. This also has that vintage style trem arm to it. The only thing I don't really like about these is the farther down you put it, it'll actually like just destroy your guitar, because it'll just rub up against it, and that's very scary when it comes to a quilty top like this. Moving on to the back, pretty standard stuff here. 4 screws holding on the neck, and your serial number is on the neck plate. And you can see the roasted alder body does have that traditional cutaway right there, so it's comfortable. But you guys tell me, do you consider this a finish defect? Because it almost seems like the finish has just bubbled here, because it's all white. You can see it there, there, and there. I mean, a little bit on these other ones, but you didn't see that on the other side of the pickguard. And is this just a historic correct thing too, where they drill this in the wrong location, and then they route the hole just a little bit so it fits where it's supposed to go? Because those were two things that struck me as odd about this one. But here's what the whole tremolo system looks like. We'll take a quick look at this body. There is some pretty interesting wood grain specks and flecks in here. Like right here, you kind of got some imperfections to the wood, but it kind of adds character to it. That's one thing I do like about Stratocaster bodies. They have different wood grain that I'm not really used to seeing when it comes to the Gibson world. I think I really would like an ash-bodied Strat. Personally for me, I think this should have also been made out of the anodized aluminum. Or at least made it gold, because this is kind of a super clash of colors. Gold, chrome, dark, light. It's a colorful guitar. But back here, you can see your rosewood neck, and you've got your skunk stripe right here made of walnut. You have your vintage style Fender Deluxe tuners. Stringing them up, I liked them, but they just feel kind of tight to move, but I guess that could be a good thing once you have it up to pitch. You can tell it's a two-piece body because the seam line is very apparent right there. But at least it doesn't stand out too much on the body. It's mainly just at the ends when it becomes evident. The Strat weighs 8 pounds 4.5 ounces when you have a bar on it. If you were to take the bar off, you can save yourself about an ounce. So let's go ahead, plug this one in, and take a listen to its tones. Now that we know all about this guitar and how it sounds, what are my final thoughts on it? I think I can say I liked this one a little bit better simply because I did a little bit of setup work on this. I mean, by no means did I do like any intonation adjustments or action adjustments. I just kind of dialed it in to where it felt better to me. So it was amazing in that aspect. I'm a fan of the pure vintage 65 pickups based on the two guitars that I've had it, and to have one in the bridge position instead of the humbucker, I think I might have liked that a little bit better. It might not quite be as versatile, but I think it gives me that signature Stratocaster sound, which this thing definitely has in spades. I'm not sure if it came through on my playing demo or not, but just sitting around, noodling on this thing, it was like, yeah, that's that Stratocaster tone. Two small things I want to mention. The middle pickup on mine, I'm not sure if it's how that is on all of them, it vibrates against the pickguard. I'll see if I can get that on the mic here. Of course it wouldn't do it. It was doing it when I was sitting down with it. There we go. You'll just have to trust me on it. It vibrates and it's kind of annoying. All you have to do is put like a small piece of foam in between that and that would stop that. But the other thing, when you're standing and playing this with the anodized back plate here, it's not as smooth as plastic. So you can actually feel it rub up against your shirt like it stops. It's weird. So it's just kind of a small thing to keep in mind right there. So overall, I had fun with the Stratocaster. I think it was fun learning some of the minute differences between this one and the one we looked at last time. And it's definitely a Strat I could see myself owning. But since this is part of my Fender Friday series, if you're interested in trading me something for this Stratocaster, I'm looking for other Fenders only on this. You can email me at tradetrogly@gmail.com. I'm really looking for the other Rarities Series guitars and other similar high-end Fenders. Basically, if it's weird and goofy, I'm interested. Or if you want to sell me your Fender, don't just ask me if I'm interested. Send me photos, send me a price, and I'll get back with you if I am interested. Thanks. But now that this review is done, let's go ahead and document the condition. I mean, this thing is pretty much brand new. I did not necessarily see anything super wrong. I mean, you might find a few impressions. I did put a little bit of graphite in the nut if that bothers you, but that got rid of that ping, ping, ping super fast. That's the first time I've ever actually done that, and wow, it's amazing how easy it is to get that off. Feeling it right now, there is like a little bit of fret sprout going on. I mean, it's not crazy, but if you're really looking for it, you can find it. But the face of the guitar, I mean, you might find a light nick or ding here or there, but I would imagine this would still sell as like, new in most stores. And the pickguard, being scratch resistant, we don't have too much to go over there. This can come off. I'll just leave it in the case. I don't know, I've kind of started to like it now that it's been on there. Moving on to the back here. Maybe some minor impressions on the neck if you're really looking for them, but I didn't wear a belt buckle while playing this, so I think we should be good here. So if you could live with like maybe a minor ding here or there that I might have missed, I think you'll be fine. But I think the worst thing about this one is that vibrating middle pickup, which would be easy enough to fix with just a little bit of foam. So let's go ahead and throw it under Blacklight for fun. Now this one kind of looks cool. It's still a poly finish, so it's not nitro or anything, but hey, it looks kind of cool under here. The anodized pickguard, the way it reflects light, that's interesting. Moving up to the face of the headstock, your bone nuts glowing, but that's about it. And now the back of the neck, and eventually the back of the body. I don't know, for whatever reason, this one just glows. That's why poly finishes always confuse me. Some of them glow, some of them don't. That's just how it is. This one retains its original vintage style case with the brown Tolex exterior. You've got two locking latches on either side and a clasp in the center. You still even have the foam over the handle if you don't want to remove that. The inside, beautiful golden interior. It kind of works with the colors of these Strats, I think. And you just got a bunch of case candy in here, as Fender's pretty good with. But that includes your certificate of authenticity, the Fender bag to put all this stuff in, your warranty registration, and all that other good stuff in here. Original case tag, lessons tag, a sticker, something to adjust some stuff. I don't know why they give you a lacquer finish as one, because it's a poly finish, and some case keys. But if you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this quilt top Stratocaster from Fender's Rarities series, you can check out that link in the description that will take you to the Reverb for sale page. Or again, I am looking for trades towards other higher end Fenders. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.